cannot see if I'm live. I wish someone would tell me. It keeps on saying drop frames. It keeps on saying drop frames. It says drop frames, but I don't see anything. Oh, shit, we are live. Okay, cool. All right. Just had to make sure. Couldn't really tell. All right, cool. We are live. All right, so cool. That makes sense because I had no idea. So let's just go ahead and roll into it. Oh, thank you, Adam. Letting me know I'm live. Hey, I'm good, all man. Just want to make sure I was live first before I jumped in and stuff. All right, so today's date, April 27, 2019, and this is how the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host and most, Will Buchanan, on how the Frack We Got Here. We do take the last week's current events and honestly try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, so language of an adult nature and also things of a graphic nature may be shown, so viewer discretion is advised. So, getting right on into it. For all people who have received their tax returns, are you happy yet? Did you get that? Did you get that big increase that you wanted? Did you manage to get that big ass boat or manage to get that TV you wanted? Or were you pissed about something that was a little bit different from every year? I'll explain.
My refund was about half of what it normally is.
We were really banking on the refund. I called my husband immediately, crying.
So I went back in and I checked everything and then I started to cry.
This year, I just don't have a refund.
My refund was about half of what it normally is. It used to be like $4,000 and then I got $2,000 this year.
But this year, instead of getting back the $5,000 Wright was expecting and that she and her husband got last year, the Houston mom found they actually owed the government money. With the birth of new daughter Olivia just 3 weeks ago, Wright says her family was counting on a tax refund to cover the cost of her unpaid maternity leave.
We were really banking on the refund because we live paycheck to paycheck. We can't, in a sense, save as of right now.
With 3 kids in college, the Edney family is now scrambling. Last year, they got a $10,000 refund, but because of high property taxes, this year, they owe $10,000.
I don't think anybody would have been able to do the tax cuts like I did. We got the greatest tax cuts ever.
Isadora Bielski says last year her family of four's tax refund topped $3,600. But this time around, when she did their taxes,
I plugged it all in and at first I thought, oh my goodness, we're getting $8,000 back. And then I realized it was the wrong color. So I went back in and I checked everything and then I started to cry.
I believe that he isn't showing his income tax returns because he didn't pay anything, and we are paying in money, and he's paying nothing when he's making billions or whatever he's at. So maybe he just doesn't understand.
We had no idea that this was coming, and I feel terrible for families that are going to have the same shock that we had, that refund check we thought was coming will not be.
Yes, so again, for all those that were hoping for big-ass refunds, did you get one? I know I didn't. Coincidentally enough, that's just 3 of many stories out there who all, because we're past the majority April 15th deadline for filing taxes. So, a lot of people are running into the shock of why not they're actually paying taxes, paying 2 taxes, or not getting or getting a very low refund, even if you have kids. I do feel for a lot of people out there, especially parents, who I've talked to that sat there and said, yes, we're actually, instead of us like the woman beforehand who usually gets a tax refund of $10,000 or $8,000, she's actually paying $8,000. Why? Well, basically because of that tax plan that was enacted sometime last year. It was a simple fact of the matter is that taxes did the reversal side of things, which meant that for the simple fact of the matter, basically corporations got the same benefits that you enjoyed. And now, on the other side of things, who has to pay for all those tax cuts that corporations and anybody making over $400K get? That'd be us. So again, it's like what is it going to take? And it's amazing to me that people still believed at the time this tax plan was going to work from a guy who has yet to show his tax returns because he's a con man, and a con man always has to hide something, especially if there's a paper trail. So again, for him to be almost near the end of his first presidential term, and has yet to fall in on his campaign promises, but yet still wants you to pay more than your fair share of taxes, kind of says a lot. But then again, it's funny, all the Trump supporters that are now looking at this and going, but I thought we would get more. No, genius. Unless you're a millionaire or billionaire, you're not going to get more. And the thing about it is, Dave Chappelle in his Netflix special said it the best way humanly possible, that Donald Trump is not fighting for guys like you. He's fighting for me because I'm rich. Now, although that is a joke, that is the truth. He is not out for them. He is not out for the people. And if this tax plan is anything but if this tax plan that's been put into place has affected your tax refunds to where you thought you can get a little breathing room between bills or vacation or maybe a big purchase on something, then you just got a very rough ass wake up call. And unfortunately, until we finally decide to get rid of Agent Orange, this is going to continue to happen. Besides from that, another story happened. Actually, I think just yesterday, which I see as a growing trend of things that are going to be influenced by Trump. And this is actually just one of them.
After a man drove his car onto a sidewalk. This happened in Northern California, and police, Jim, are calling it an intentional act.
Nick Watt has been following the story. Nick, do we know what the motive was here?
We do not yet know the motive, Jim. I just spoke with officials up there in Sunnyvale who say that they are exploring all possibilities, and they have called the FBI just out of an abundance of caution, but Sunnyvale Public Safety, they remain the lead agency on this. Now, the reason why they're saying they think this was an intentional act is witnesses say that they did not see any indication that this driver was trying to brake, and there was also no evidence at the scene that suggested he was trying to brake. The incident happened around 6:40 p.m. local time. It's a busy intersection there in Sunnyvale, which is a small, sleepy city in Silicon Valley, just southeast of San Francisco. And that intersection, there are restaurants, stores. It's unclear what the motive was. It's unclear if the driver knew any of the people that he hit. But I have been told by Sunnyvale authorities that they have now identified that driver. They are withholding the name for now, and we do not have a motive. But listen, we have, of course, seen in the past incidents like this where it has been a mistake, an accident, someone hitting the accelerator rather than the brake. We've seen it intentionally done. We've also seen this as a terrorist act, but no indication so far that this is a terrorist act of any description. The investigation is ongoing, and we're expecting updates as California wakes up, guys.
Now, what's interesting about that story... Actually, let me stop that.
Hey, more of the breaking news.
Sorry, CNN got ahead of me. So, what's interesting about that story is that the update was, and he sat there and said the reason why he hit these individuals was because he believed they were of the Muslim faith. So, again, it's amazing where they sat there and the driver who hit these 8 people with his car has now admitted that he thought they were of the Muslim faith. So again, why is this relevant? It's relevant because the simple fact of the matter is just that there is, we have an administration that's in place that is allowing this stuff that is, I'm not going to say allowing, but it's influencing. I mean, the Charlottesville rally, when the guy took his Dodge Challenger and ran over a group of people, ran over a group of protesters in Charlottesville, and what he did, and now you have a person here in California that's literally running over individuals because they're Muslim. So think about this. If people are literally acting on the simple fact that somebody's Muslim and is immediately trying to kill them, where is this rhetoric coming from? And you could say it's Trump. I mean, it is partly is him. But honestly, it's the fact that he has yet to denounce the nationalists, the white nationalists out there, the Aryan nation, pretty much everybody that's just basically thinks that every other race is inferior to them. And this is a growing trend that seems to keep on going and going. And my question is, it's going to come to a head eventually. Eventually it will come to a head. And I'm not going to sit there and say, because really what it is, it's the other side hoping for a race war is what it really is. You know, the whole thing about they're eventually going to come and get us and we're going to have to submit to them. I think the scariest thing to white people is that they turn around and become slaves for us, and we know that's not going to happen. But that's the fear, because let's be honest, history has shown that they haven't really been kind to a lot of other ethnicities out there, so turnabout would be fair play. But again, this is all inciting violence. And the thing about it is, when your head, especially your administration and your government's not denouncing these groups, then they're pretty much along with them, which is another thing I'm going to get into very shortly about that. But I just, hopefully all 8 people that were hit will actually come out just fine. But the reason why I bring that up is because Joe Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden, is now running for president, and that's a whole other story in itself. But he does go after Trump as far as him saying, he called the people during the Charlottesville rally very fine people. Yes, the white nationalists, the so-called Aryan Nation, and KKK people down there, and folks that just simply hated it, and folks that just simply hated everybody because of their skin color, called them very fine people because at the time they were protesting the Robert E. Lee statue that was coming down, which a lot of Confederate statues did actually come down. Unfortunately, in Tennessee, are still fucking up until someone decides to do us all a favor and take it down. But anyway, this is what this fool said when he was asked about those very same comments.
He was talking about people that went because they felt very strongly about the monument to Robert E. Lee, a great general, whether you like it or not. He was one of the great generals. I've spoken to many generals here, right at the White House, and many people thought of the generals. They think that he was maybe their favorite general. People were there protesting the taking down of the monument of Robert E. Lee. Everybody knows that.
So yes, when given a chance to honestly clean it up, maybe walk back what he said, maybe if he went back and really looked at it, he had a chance. But he decided to go ahead and double down. He decided to go ahead and say, well, you know why? The reason why they were there, why they were very nice people, and then he just sidetracks. Well, they were there because of the statue. So people that were dressed in riot gear, helmets, and had weapons were going to protest. What protest do you know that you can just wait? I'm sorry. What protest do you know that you can go somewhere with weapons, riot gear, and a helmet on and go protest? Because let's be honest, if guys like me went to protest fully armored gear head to toe, trust and believe half of Nashville's Metro PD and SWAT would be there to greet us. Why? Because they already know that's bullshit. So again, when you think that Agent Orange would actually take the chance to actually fix what he said, or finally sit there and say, you know what, I was wrong, or any of that nature. Nope, double down. Why? Well, let's be honest. He's a fan. He's a wannabe dictator that has that local militia army that just supports him so because he doesn't turn his back on him. He doesn't say that he supports him, but he does say he doesn't support him. But let's be honest, he supports them. But moving right along as far as that goes. So everybody remembers the Flint water crisis, right? I mean, still going on. There's still, they finally did as of last week, got the funding to actually fix the pipes. Damn near almost 7-8 years later. Now, what's interesting about this is that now there has been evidence found to basically get people as far as brought on trial in the water case. Most importantly, the superintendent at the time, former health chief Nick Lyon, apparently had 6 boxes full of evidence that they were trying to destroy, that somehow prosecutors were able to find. So you're telling me this whole entire time this shit's been going down, because I have been saying this from Jump Street, that anybody involved with Flint city legislation all the way up to water management should honestly be tried for genocide. That should be attempted genocide is what that is. Because you're not going to sit there and tell me for nearly a decade that this has been going on, that the problem hasn't been fixed, and you're going to sit there and tell me that we are basically half a decade into this. This was 2014, 2015. So we're almost nearly 5 years in. So it is amazing to me that only one person has actually been tried, when everybody from everybody in legislation that was involved that could have changed this should have honestly been tried. And because we don't know the ramifications behind this. We don't know how many generations this is going to affect children that have been drinking this unsafe water and then bathing in it. We don't know how far this is going to go. All the more reason why there should be a lot more done than simply just bringing one person to justice, fixing the water pipes. There honestly should be reimbursements to basically every citizen there, because they are going to be affected. But it's one of those things where I wish more was done. I'm happy that they did get the funding. I'm happy that those pipes are eventually going to be fixed. I'm happy that, some justice, although it's really not justice, is being served. But more can be done. More should be done, because I'm sorry, if a fucking cathedral in Paris can get $1 billion of funding in less than 24, 48 hours, and I'm sorry, I don't have that much attraction to Notre Dame. I don't. To me, it's a cathedral. Some people of the Catholic faith, maybe it's your Mecca next to the Vatican. I don't know. I just don't have that type of attachment to it. To me, it's just a fucking building. But that simple building got $1 billion, nearly $1 billion pledged to it in 24 to 48 hours post-event. 3 black churches in Louisiana still can't get funding because they were bombed out by a sheriff's son who honestly is a racist. I don't see a whole bunch of billionaires coming to fund those 3 black churches. But then again, what do I expect? Because that just tells you how much bullshit it is and how much money is in these so-called churches that they choose, especially when you have millionaires and billionaires here that can turn around and actually help, just like the millionaires and billionaires that are helping at Notre Dame. But again, the same sense with Flint, same thing could have been done. I just think it's bullshit. But moving right along as far as that goes, everybody remember the Russian agent Maria Butina? The one person that says that she wasn't a spy for Russia infiltrating the NRA, dancing and singing with people. Well, it's funny that she's now trying to defend herself as she's being tried. I'll let you look for yourself.
A Russian woman who pleaded guilty to acting as a Russian agent. Tonight, Butina is speaking out from behind bars, and we have new images here from the day of the FBI raid when they showed up at her door. ABC's Kara Phillips on this again tonight.
This is the voice of Maria Butina, who tonight denies she's a Russian spy.
If I would be a beautiful Russian spy, you would never see me in public. I would be the most unseen person on earth.
She's speaking out for the first time against charges she operated covertly for the Kremlin. In prison since her July arrest, spending time in solitary confinement.
I am locked for 22 hours. I get 2 hours at night to do everything, including shower.
She complains her character came under attack. This video emerging of her recording a duet with a GOP operative after they became romantically involved.
Being called a whore It's very hard. It's just so much pain for the family.
The interviews were conducted by author Jim Bamford for a story in the New Republic. Butina describing the FBI raid.
Huge. I mean, very loud.
Did they yell FBI or something?
Yeah. They who you are, and they told the FBI search warrant. So I opened the door. I was completely shocked. I was baking banana bread.
Butina cut a deal, eventually pleading guilty to conspiracy to act as a foreign agent. Now, federal prosecutors say she's cooperating.
Truth is my best defender here.
And Kira's with us now. You've talked to her before off the record. So why do this interview? Why now?
That's right. I met with her in jail twice. She clearly wants to get her story out there, clear her name, and get back home to Russia.
All right, Kira.
So I'm sorry. I was trying not to laugh. I wasn't trying to laugh because she says she's not a Russian. Okay, let's try this again. Maria Butina says that she's not a Russian agent. Okay. So you have a Russian accent, which is, again, doesn't mean that you're an agent, but you pled guilty to conspiracy. You were seen with GOP politicians and with the NRA, but you're not a spy. Now, I'm going to be honest. You know when I look at this and I want to say bullshit because this all it is just spinning her story. I mean, she pled guilty. If you really were as innocent as you say you were, then you would plead not guilty. At least that would help your story, at least help your spinning of your story. But, you know, you pleading guilty to conspiracy means that, yes, there is a lot of smoke there that you're not willing to try. At the same time, the fact of the matter is that, yes, you were seen with many GOP politicians, and you were seen as a liaison between Russia and the NRA. Let's pretty much just wind all this up. Yeah, that's a whole lot of Snoop Dogg smoke. But it's interesting now that she's trying to get her story out, mainly because that, you know, she's going to be seen as all these things. But I just laugh when she wants to get back to her home in Russia. But not a spy. Right. Good luck with that. Anyway, moving right along. If you work for Amazon, and I'm not asking anybody at Amazon to jeopardize their job over this, please don't respond to it. Please don't sit there and say, yes, this is true. But I find this interesting, and of the stories I come across was this one right here, was that Amazon is under fire for software that recommends firing workers. So apparently, and this is allegedly, like I said, I don't want anybody at Amazon that I know to jeopardize their job. Do not confirm this or deny this. Simply let it pass you by. But the story that's come out was that Amazon uses an automated system that tracks warehouse workers' productivity and can issue termination notices if they miss targets. Amazon has said that it's absolutely not true that the software alone is responsible for firing workers, noting managers may intervene in dismissals. Okay, let's stop for a second right there. Because that right there makes no sense. If it's absolutely not true that the software alone is responsible for firing workers. So, let's look at the before sentence. Amazon uses an automated system that tracks warehouse workers' productivity and can issue termination notices if they miss targets. But the second sentence is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the second sentence seems to be confirming what the first sentence actually says. And I wouldn't put it past Amazon, honestly. I honestly would not put it past Amazon to have a service in it. Because keep in mind, Amazon is known for its shipping and its inventory and its pricing. And the simple fact of the matter, it's trying to cover the market. It's trying to be the Walmart of the internet. So actually, it is the Walmart of the internet. Because a lot of us, including myself, do shop from Amazon. So of course, from a warehouse productivity standpoint, they're probably going to have obscene production numbers for those that work at the warehouses, that work in deliveries, and work in every aspect of Amazon. So I'm not really surprised that possibly, yes, that there could be something in there that, you know, has a ridiculous system, probably done by a numbers guy who's going to sit there and say, this is the way Amazon should work. And I wouldn't be surprised. Almost the same sense where a lot of people were surprised about those with Alexa devices. Yes, Alexa does. Alexa does listen to your conversations. I don't know if you've noticed this, but any device that is a smartphone device, can listen. So all those that have Google Home and Alexa and all that crap, yeah, you wonder why certain things pop up in your feed. It's because they are listening in and they've admitted it. Oh, hey man, what do you say? Every company has that. Notifications are sent based on the criteria and targets into the system, both for production and attendance. Yeah, I mean, I get that, but to have a system that pretty much says that, oh, this person's underperforming, so therefore they must go. I wouldn't be surprised if Amazon has that. I really wouldn't, because they seem to be that type of company. I just find it interesting that they deny immediately that the system doesn't tell people to fire, that their system doesn't recommend people to be fired, that the managers step in. Okay. I mean, you can sit there and tell me that, but I'm like, it doesn't sound like it wouldn't be past Amazon to do that. Targets are set by time studies, not random numbers. Okay. I mean, like I said, I'm not asking people from Amazon that I know. If you work at Amazon, I don't want you, like I said, don't jeopardize your job for this. I mean, I can sit there and go off what I know and just leave it as allegedly, but guys, yeah, don't respond and say you're right or all this crap. Just save your job. That's all I'm asking. But we're going to keep that right along because, like I said, I don't want nobody to come back and sit there and say, Will, you're right. The next thing you know, you don't have a job because I can't pay you. But moving right along, Harvey Weinstein is a name that hasn't been heard in a while. And why has it hasn't been heard in a while? Well, we can go into that, but he's actually going to have a case.
Involving Harvey Weinstein headed to court today, hoping to get his sexual assault case dismissed. But tonight, what the judge said instead, ABC's Lindsay Davis was at the courthouse.
Harvey Weinstein leaving court today one step closer to standing trial for rape.
How do you feel?
The judge ruling he would not dismiss the criminal case against him.
We remain confident, despite the court's ruling today, that ultimately at a trial of this case, Mr. Weinstein will be completely exonerated.
Initially, Weinstein faced 6 counts related to allegations by 3 women, including charges of rape and sexual assault. But one of those charges was later dropped after potential inconsistencies in one accuser's story. Weinstein's attorney argued that her perjured testimony contaminated the grand jury proceedings and called for the remaining 5 counts to be dismissed. The judge disagreed.
We just left the courthouse where Harvey Weinstein was not acquitted or dismissed.
Leaders of the Me Too movement and several actresses, including Marissa Tomei,
Marissa, why was it important for you to be here today?
Stand with survivors.
emerged from the courtroom saying they were relieved the case would move forward.
Weinstein is expected back in court in March for a pretrial hearing. He still faces multiple civil suits as well. And also important to note that he has maintained all along that he has never had any non-consensual sexual encounters, Dave.
All right, Lindsay Davis with us again.
So the only thing I gotta sit there and say is that a lot of people were still wondering because how quickly and how long they went after Bill Cosby. Now, however you feel about Cosby is however you feel. Was justice served? Was it not served? Was it just them trying to get somebody because he was trying to buy NBC? All things at this point are on the table. Only because at the same time, you gotta remember they had a group. There was Cosby, there was Weinstein, there was Spacey, there was Jeremy Piven, there was oh god, there was like 9 other white people I can't name right. There was 9 other white guys I can't name right now. But at the same time, it just seems that Bill Cosby was the only guy they got because Kevin Spacey still has yet to see a trial. Harvey Weinstein is finally going to see a trial date come September 9th. And the one thing I will say from this is, like I said, because Harvey Weinstein was the lightning rod of the Me Too movement, which could have been influenced by the Me Too movement, and again, other actresses and people started coming forward. So again, he was one of those ones where it just seems like he fell behind the wayside, behind the Cosby train, because everybody was so sure that Cosby did it. Now, regardless of your opinion of it, I want you to keep that very same energy that you had toward Weinstein. Because apparently, I just feel like this is not going to get enough press as Cosby did, because they filmed Cosby every week of his life more so than they did when he was doing the Cosby Show. So we'll see where it goes from there. But also another thing I wanted to show was reason 345. Well, actually need to change that number. Reason 6,785 why I can't be a parent, because if this happened to my child, basically somebody's going to die.
It's embarrassment Dante Trice says his son Joel's may feel for a long time. He's a shy, respectful kid, which is why he didn't talk back or resist when two staff members at Barry Miller Junior High did this.
Hold my son against his will and color his hair, and then he said they laughing while they're doing it. That makes me even more mad. So my kid is a joke.
Joel's tells me the permanent marker or going to in-school suspension were his only two options for showing up with a design cut in his head. Mom Angela says they're very involved and would have taken care of it, but were never notified.
You should have been like, okay, we need to call your mother, first to let her know what's going on, and no one did that at all.
Pearland ISD's dress code does say, quote, extreme hairstyles such as carvings, mohawks, spikes, etc. are not allowed. It does not say how to handle it if a student violates that. Joel's mom says the administrator behind the coloring called her and said after thinking about it, he shouldn't have handled things that way.
They were very apologetic, but it just doesn't, it still happened. And, for an adult, nobody should think that that is the correct way to handle a situation.
I reached out to Pearland ISD, and in a statement they admit, quote, a campus administrator mishandled disciplinary action and that what happened is not condoned by the district. The administrator allegedly behind it all is currently on administrative leave.
What they done to my son was wrong, and somebody needs to pay for it some type of way.
So I'm sorry, this is the reason why I can't be a parent. Because if you touch my child, especially about their hair, because I'm going to be honest, I'm not going to be as calm as they were. Because if you tell me that my child's haircut or hairstyle is a problem, or you don't tell me that my child's haircut or hairstyle or clothing is a problem, and you as a school administrator take it upon yourself to give my child a choice, and my child comes home and tells me what has happened, I'm going back up to that school, and somebody's going. I know I'm going to jail. I know I'm going to jail. But I also know whoever touched my child is going in the hospital, because again, this is a problem that a lot of that I see is a growing trend with school administrators, that they're taking more of the parenting into their hands. And I understand, because the way I was raised and the way we came up, the school administrators, principals, teachers had a lot more say, had a lot more doing. Corporal punishment was enacted. This is true. But that's not the same way it is now. Now, again, I understand, because, with dress codes, hairstyles, things of that nature, they have to, you have to have that in place. I get that. But what kind of worried me more was that you're telling me that you say hairstyles such as carvings, mohawks, spikes, and all this stuff is not allowed, but what happens when it shows up? I mean, I would think that, the teachers would call the parents would take the kid home, or, the kid would be given a warning or be given a notice. I mean, the thing about it is, the kid's at school. His education shouldn't be impeded because of his hairstyle. If anything else, he should have been sent home with a letter. He should have been sent home with a letter to his parents saying, hey, we noticed that he has this. He still was allowed to come to school today, but we need to have this taken care of. That's how it should have been handled. Or just call the parents. Of all the communication devices we have out there, you're going to sit there and tell me that, because I mean, my parents did to me all from kindergarten to 6th grade. They walked straight up to the teacher and said, if there is any type of problem with this young man right here, here's the number where I can be reached. Gave it to the teacher. Now, very rarely was that number ever called, but again, that was the level of trust educators and parents had, that educators wouldn't have to do anything except, I'm going to call your parents. That was usually enough for most of us. And I know in this day and age it doesn't have that same effect, but at the same time, teachers, as teachers are underpaid, overworked, and have to deal with insane types of testing and adherence statistics that haven't changed since the 70s. This one is literally a softball over the plate. If the child simply had a hairstyle that didn't align with school rules, the teacher should have just called the parents. Or better yet, send a letter home. Or did both. But above all else, you don't touch the child. You don't. Because touching the child means that the parent has homicidal tendencies. And then somebody's going to be in the hospital. And that is why I shouldn't be a parent. Because I will care that much for my child. And I would I would intentionally hurt or maim anybody that choose to harm my child in such a manner. But honestly, when it all comes down to it, the school fucked up. And I think that the administrator who actually ever did it does need to be suspended. Now, he does need to be suspended without pay. But we all know that he probably did get paid. But again, that's one of those things where I was like, if that was me, if that was my child, ooh, that would have ended in arrest. But moving right along to the last story, which is going to be kind of short, which you all know that the Democrats have actually gotten the House, which means they're issuing subpoenas. Now, the one thing about this is the Mueller report, which I will actually talk about on the next podcast. I actually finished reading the 448 pages, and I actually made some notes on certain key arguments that I think will be brought up later on, which I will go into next week. Because, like I said, 448-page report that I read inside of a week, eyes tied. My brain is literally fried from reading that. But if you ever get a chance to read this redacted report, even redacted, there is still so much information there on a redacted state that Congress will need to act. And I think they are going to act. Reason being because of the following story that I'm about to show now, which we're hoping it plays. We hope it plays.
In the face of mounting subpoenas and oversight demands from House Democrats, CBS News has confirmed that the Trump administration will not allow senior advisor Stephen Miller to testify before Congress. The House Oversight Committee wanted to question him on the Trump administration's immigration policies. And the president is also defending his actions over former White House counsel Don McGahn's account in the Mueller report. McGahn told investigators he denied 2 requests from the president to fire Mueller. Well, this morning, Mr. Trump wrote on Twitter, and I'm quoting here, "If I wanted to fire Mueller, I didn't need McGahn to do it. I could have done it myself." Kevin Sorelli joins me from the White House. He's the chief Washington correspondent for Bloomberg News. So, Kevin, boy, what a week it's been since the Mueller report came out. We know the president's team, they've declared victory at this point. Why is it, though, that Mr. Trump the president keeps hitting this issue over and over again instead of sort of pivoting towards policy issues?
Well, from the administration's perspective, Democrats are continuing their oversight of the administration, continuing with their calls to have special counsel Bob Mueller testify before Congress once the congressional recess concludes. We should also note that Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin has issued a response to House Oversight Committee Chairman Elijah Cummings, saying that they will not provide the plethora of records, including financial records, that they have been asked to provide, citing that there is no quote-unquote legislative purpose for these types of subpoenas. So this is a new strategy that we are seeing emerge from the administration, which is that they are not necessarily going to just hand over the documents that have been requested, or to provide senior level officials like Stephen Miller the ability to testify once called before the Democratic House of Representatives.
You know, we heard the president specifically mention Mueller's findings about former White House counsel Don McGahn. What are folks in the White House saying about the potential McGahn's testimony? Are they concerned moving forward on this?
Yes. They view Don McGahn as someone, Rena, who, quite frankly, has totally flipped in the sense similar to Michael Cohen. They view him as someone who is not going to be compliant with the administration's messaging, and you're seeing that start to materialize based upon the president's tweets as well as from comments that are being made privately from administration officials.
You know, it's interesting. The White House says that they're not going to let Stephen Miller testify on immigration before the House Oversight Committee, but they will allow other officials to testify on the topic. Why do you think it is that it seems to be this protection around Miller at this point?
Well, two things. And there's two different answers that you get when you ask this question here in Washington. The first is from the sense of they just don't want to have a political piñata of sorts put up there on Capitol Hill. Stephen Miller has been increasingly a divisive figure within this administration, not just amongst Democrats, but also amongst more moderate voices within the Trump administration. And the second point is that President Trump himself, according to some sources, has grown frustrated that Stephen Miller has been largely seen as the architect behind the administration's immigration policy. They say that all things start and end with President Trump. And so now you have the acting Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Kevin McAleenan, who has really emerged as the voice here. He's tasked with merging all of those divisive voices within the administration and the diverse issue of immigration. And it's an incredibly difficult line for them to walk. Beyond that, even at the issue of the border, where the president earlier this week threatening to send down armed troops to the U.S.-Mexico border, you also have this private discussions going on with Democrats led by Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, as well as Jared Kushner, to try to potentially gauge whether or not there would be some type of legislative package that Democrats would be able to get on board with. That's very difficult, but hey, when you look at infrastructure and you look at Speaker Nancy Pelosi set to be at the White House next week, maybe there is an opening.
Pretty much there, it kind of goes on to a different subject at that point. But pretty much the idea of it all is just that the House of Representatives, which is democratically controlled, is starting to finally throw out subpoenas, which is great. Those subpoenas actually have to be answered, which is the one thing the administration is not saying. It's just that since the House is really more the investigative side, they can go ahead and actually issue subpoenas on everything. Even Maxine Waters, as chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, she still could at this day request anybody's tax returns, including the president. She hasn't done it yet. But again, if she was to do it, then there's no question, because by the law set in place by the Constitution, she can do that. And right now, Trump's administration is scrambling because Stephen Miller has no problem telling the truth about how he feels about immigration, how he feels about Muslims and Mexicans and other individuals. He is literally exactly what nationalists want him to be. A guy in a very high position of power, pretty much instead of a hood on, he has a suit. And the reason why Trump, and the funny part is the reason why Trump does not want him to actually testify, does not want Miller to testify, is because he'll take the credit and he's jealous of him. I mean, let's be honest. He keeps on saying, well, it starts and ends with Trump. No, Trump was influenced. Almost every idea that Trump's ever had during this political party can always be tied to somebody else. I mean, the wall, that wasn't him. That was actually Miller himself with Fox News. The whole idea of the GOP tax cuts, that wasn't him. That was Wall Street and corporations. The whole idea of separating migrant families at the border, and that they're still doing it, wasn't him. It was basically his cohorts and Rush Limbaugh who influenced him. So to say that Donald Trump actually has an original idea would be the only simple fact that the only original idea he had was that he married and divorced multiple times until he got his mail order bride, which we call the first hostage. But again, not surprised that he doesn't want Miller to testify, because instead of the simple fact that he could probably just tank his whole entire presidency, it's the fact that he's jealous because he's been given the credit for ideas. Yep, that sounds like Trump. Always wanted to get credit for somebody else, except when he's black. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and go to our good news segment. Like I said, we always do a lot of stories that are sad, sometimes depressing, sometimes just make you wonder where in the world are we going, where, is this world truly going a shithole in a basket? But we do have those stories out there that just make us feel good and actually gives us a little bit of hope in humanity. And I thought this one was pretty cool because in certain situations, this may not be seen as happy, but I kind of dig it.
Says his life is forever changed after he invited this elderly woman to eat with him. Jamario Howard says he went to a restaurant with his friends in Alabama. That's when he saw Eleanor sitting all by herself. Thinking he'd hate to eat alone, he went over and he spoke to her. Well, Jamario learned that Eleanor had lost her husband, and the following day would have been their 60th wedding anniversary. So the young man invited Eleanor over to eat with him and his friends. He says this meeting taught him to be kind to others because you just never know what someone else is going through in their own life. Jamario posted the moment on Facebook and got tens of thousands of likes. This story is going so viral right now on so many platforms because it just shows simple kindnesses, just reaching out to a stranger, can really make a difference, Robin. A guy says his...
Well, and that's the thing about it. You know what? There's another thing about that story which I do love that I think is honestly, this might actually be the secret to world peace. And I think that story may have shed the light on it. And here's what I'm saying. The secret to honestly harmony among ethnic races, whites, blacks, Mexicans, everybody, I think it's barbecue. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Now, I understand there's some people who don't dig on pork. I get it. We can make exceptions, but there's also going to be those people who are vegans that don't like, those secret plant serial killers. But the one thing I've actually noticed, and this is just me being personal, food does bring people together. Like I said, I've seen a cop and a black person both enjoy a good barbecue. And I don't know what it is about barbecue. I don't know if it's the food. I don't know if it's the environment. I don't know if it could be a multitude of things. But it's also the one time where you see people come together and it's all love. Now, I'm not saying in this case, a elderly white woman sit with a bunch of black dudes don't look suspect, but I do like the fact that he actually wanted to invite her to his table and everybody could enjoy a meal. That's one of those things that I just sit there and I thought about. I said, is barbecue truly the answer to world peace? And if so, we're going to need a shitload of more grills, if that's the case. But again, I like the story, because it just tells you the simple fact of the matter is that, yes, we're all human. Yes, we all get hungry. And apparently we all love barbecue. So why not? And speaking of barbecue, I wish I could barbecue grill out here today because it is a beautiful Saturday morning here in Nashville. And of course, we have the draft down here. So if you're downtown right now, good luck, especially getting out. But anyway, gonna wrap it up for this show. Before I do go, there is some shameless promotion I need to do. Aside from my show of How the Frack We Got Here, that's usually every 10 a.m. to noon, I do have my other show that's gonna be coming up later on called How the Frack Off-Limits Podcast, where usually from every 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Honestly, I'm going to talk about something that's been bugging me for a while. It'll probably be another call-in show, so I'm going to ask for other people's opinions. And yes, I do want you to call in because I think it's going to be an interesting subject, especially if you once I talk about it. But again, it'll be a call-in show tonight, Off-Limits Podcast, which will also be broadcasting on Facebook Live, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. I'm not the only guy out here that has podcasts from the Table of Bosses. I do actually have Vaughn, Ate My Witherspoon on Facebook. He has several podcasts of his own. He actually has the I Get That Reference VST, which is a 30-minute podcast over various music videos, just little news that you might find interesting. It's also an interactive show. He also has Rhythm This, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, where he actually goes over musical albums like he just did this past Thursday to a 4-tier system. Whatever the 4-tier system is, gotta watch Rhythm This to find out. And earlier today, he did have his Random as Fuck with Uncle VZ. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is honestly the pool of ratchetness we sometimes dip our toes into to basically give us a little break from life. Very funny show about the videos that he finds, and sometimes cringeworthy, but like I said, interactive show, all definitely fun to watch. My other friend of mine, Trace, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube and Facebook, has several podcasts of his own. He actually has The Bump Down, which is music, charts, knowledge, and numbers, which he goes over what's hot on the charts and what's not, what's on the mainstream and underground, gives his insight into what the musical industry is, and also if you do have music that you want him to play on the Bump Down, and also music that you want Vaughn to play on Rhythm This, definitely submit your music to them as Vaughn on his Rhythm This has Step Into the Ring. And I don't know, Trace, what you call yours on Bump Down yet. I think you just call it Just Listen or something like that. Let me know. But again, you can send your music to both of them to have them played on both podcasts. Trace also has a Smoke of Truth, which I like to call the unfiltered, unfiltered, all-knowing, check your ego at the door type of podcast. That it is not for the faint of heart, but if you are one of those that are just wanting to speak plainly and honestly be able to deal without consequence and actually be able to enjoy truth as it stands, that's the brother you need to hear it from. Unorthodox, but very intelligent. And also my other friend of mine, Thomas Reed, as we call the Mountain Puncher, has his To Be Determined podcast. Not sure it's going to be today, but if it is, it'll be today at 3 p.m. To Be Determined podcast is a fitness podcast because Thomas is into fitness. He'll talk about, certain workouts, eating, nutrition, and just giving his personal testimony, because I keep forgetting to find that picture of him from almost 8 years ago, because if I showed you a picture of him 8 years ago and showed him a picture of him now, you'll swear up and down it's two different people. But again, To Be Determined podcast. If it does happen today, it will be at 3 p.m. as always is on Saturdays. Aside from that, we all do have YouTube pages. So if you look up DJ King Eddie Wayne, if you look up I Get That Reference, if you look up How the Frack We Got Here, and if you look up the Offense Podcast, all these are active YouTube pages to where you can like, share, and subscribe, and be able to see every one of our updated podcasts from there. The last thing I say at the end of every How the Frack We Got Here, I always say it's about staying informed. Staying informed basically means that you're not taking anything at face value. You are literally going into it, researching, really digging the dirt to find the truth, and that way when you bring it back to somebody, you hopefully will inspire them to do the same, because an informed community can make a lot smarter decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump, and that's how the frack we got here. Hope you guys do enjoy your weekend. Look forward to seeing you guys on this podcast later on tonight. Again, if it's beautiful where you are, enjoy it. If not, hope it gets better. Aside from that, peace!